Hello, I'm Terry Gilliam with Leaving California and Life After California. Today, we are leaving California for the Albuquerque, New Mexico area. I'm pleased to introduce Tom Hobbs and Nancy Wils. Tom is a realtor in the Rio Rancho, Albuquerque area, and Nancy is his broker. I wanted to introduce them. Hello, Tom and Nancy.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi, Terry.
Great to see you guys. Well, Tom, let's start with you. You and I are the ones who connected a while back. Tell us about yourself. You moved from California to New Mexico. Can you give us some of your background? And then Nancy will hit yours in just a moment. So, Tom, go ahead.
I actually got out of the Air Force in New Mexico in 1984.
Hmm.
Lived here for about, I don't know, till 1995, when I graduated from UNM. And because I graduated with a kind of a film background, I moved out to California, to the San Diego area. And then we moved to New York, raised our kids there, and now I'm back in New Mexico. So there was kind of an arc. So I've seen both. I've seen both of the Exodus areas right now. So uh, this is where I want to be. So I actually grew up in the National Park Service. I never really had a solid place to call home because we moved around so much. I had a great family, but never a real home state until I moved to New Mexico in 1984. So that's where I kind of decided I wanted to say I was from.
And Nancy, why don't you give us a little background on yourself?
Sure. I grew up in New York City and I went to SUNY Brockport, upstate New York, and I had the opportunity to do a study abroad program. So I went to Denmark in 1979 and went to school there and got connected in, community and decided to stay and met someone and started my family. And I ended up living there for 20 years. And then, so then in 1997, an opportunity came up. My brother and my mother had moved out to New Mexico to Albuquerque in the mid 90s after my dad had passed away, and they moved out here. And then they kind of said, why don't you come to New Mexico and be a realtor? And that just rang my bell. So I moved here with my Danish husband and my two children at the time, and I was pregnant with our third son in 1997, and I immediately got my real estate license and got started in that right as I then had our youngest son, who now is also getting his real estate license.
And a lot has changed since 1997, right? I mean, New Mexico has been discovered and it's no longer the sleepy town it used to be. There's a lot of people that have moved to Albuquerque and Rio Rancho and places like that, haven't there?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
And Santa Fe.
an interesting story about Rio Rancho is that in the 80s, I used to ride my sandrail out here. And when I met my wife at UNM, our first date was out on the sandrail, and we were actually tooling around the same area where we now live. However, there was nothing here at the time. It was just open desert. So
Wow. Well, can you both just give us an overview of the Albuquerque area? There's a lot of people in the group, I'm sure, who've never even been to Albuquerque. I've been to Albuquerque many times and love the area. It's much lower cost as far as what we're used to in California, but maybe people just think of it as just another Las Vegas or hot desert place that is just another dot on the map. Can you give us an overview of Albuquerque and what drives the economy and why people live in the Albuquerque Rio Rancho area?
Well, I'd like to say that New Mexico as a state has many very different areas from, where you get heavy winter and skiing to the desert plains, mesas. And Albuquerque, the city, is in the Rio Grande Valley. So we have the Sandia Mountains, which is part of the Rockies, to the east, and to the west, you have the open mesa areas and Mount Taylor and such.
An interesting thing about New Mexico is that we actually have 5 of the 7 climates. We don't have tropical and we don't have tundra, but we have everything else in between. So if you're looking to live in a temperate zone, we got that. If you're looking to live in a in the high desert, we have that. And we cover the whole. Nancy and I can cover the whole state, so we're licensed in the whole state. So,
as far as Albuquerque is concerned, depending on where you are in Albuquerque, because even that you could be in the foothills, just under the Sandias, and you would have juniper, cypress, or kind of topography, and then you could go to the West Mesa, where there's a lot of development going on, and you would be in the sand. And, and then you can be in the valley where there's farming and close to the Rio Grande.
And then what drives the economy there? Who are your major employers? In fact, I think you've got one of the labs there, the national labs in the area. And then also, what do you have for private employers in the area?
Well, actually have 2 labs. We have the Sandia lab and the Los Alamos lab and that's up in Los Alamos. Right now, the number 1 employer in the state's the film industry. So,
wow.
Netflix just committed to investing over $1 billion into the Albuquerque economy in productions. So we got that going for us. We also have in Rio Rancho. That's the huge center where Intel is, and they have a campus there that's absolutely huge. It goes on for I think almost 3/4 of a mile. It seems like. So there's that. Plus, we have a bunch of manufacturers moving in too. There's a whole industrial section at the north end of the city, where all sorts of manufacturers are moving in. So,
and home building is huge.
So you have a diversified economy. You're not just dependent upon the government. You're not just dependent upon whatever one big manufacturer. You've got a diverse economy that can sustain itself through economic ups and downs.
Absolutely, and in the 80s when I lived here, the biggest employer was the state, and boy, has that ever changed. And the second biggest employer was Kirtland Air Force Base, where I was stationed. So they've moved away from that.
And what do you attribute the growth over those years, Tom? Why has Albuquerque gone from a sleepy town to this thriving metropolis that it is now? What do you attribute that to?
I think that actually people found out our secret, that it's a great place to live. It really is. I mean, you like, I wake up in the morning and I take a hike. In 10 minutes, I'm at the foothills of the Sandia, and there's nobody within hardly. I might run across 1 or 2 people as I'm hiking, but then I can go back right into town and go to work. And the outdoors, it's very much an outdoorsy place. If you like getting out into the open space, this is the place to be.
And can you describe the difference between, first of all, how close is Rio Rancho to Albuquerque, and then what are the differences? Why would somebody move in Rio Rancho versus Albuquerque?
Well, Albuquerque and Rio Rancho are basically sister cities. They kind of butt right up against each other. Rio Rancho is actually a little more conservative than Albuquerque. My politics are very center. So I'm very happy here. So I'll let Nancy answer the Albuquerque part of it.
Well, Albuquerque, of course, started getting settled in the early 1900s, and by folks coming to the area, and we built the university and the hospitals, etc. And Rio Rancho was actually started by Intel. When Intel developed in Rio Rancho, not only did they build their facility there and bring in tens of thousands of employees, but they also contributed to the local economy, and still do, in creating the roads. They built the state-of-the-art high school, Rio Rancho High School, and it became a suburb of Albuquerque, mainly for, starting with the Intel people, because there was so much housing in demand, and then the schools got built and the stores, the retail became more and more developed. But for example, we don't have a huge mall in Rio Rancho. You'd have to drive 10 minutes down the hill to get to the Cottonwood Mall. But we have, Target, and smaller retail stores, lots of small business that has developed over the years. And the entire development planning of Rio Rancho, I believe their motto is City of the Future.
Yeah.
Right? Something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it is.
And they have they built an arena, an indoor arena called the Star Center, where they have, everything you would need a very large arena for. And so Hewlett Packard is there. The Rio Rancho UNM hospital is there. We have the airlift from that hospital to the UNM main campus, or the main hospital downtown. And so it's really developed with a vision of the growing city. And many of the folks that came here, there were like different groups of people that came here in the early 70s. It was developed by AMREP, and they brought people in from all around the country to invest in New Mexico. They, some people may remember commercials in the early 70s. I remember from when I was growing up, $50 a month secures your retirement, and you could buy a piece of land in Rio Rancho. Well, then AMREP, which is American Real Estate and Petroleum Development Corporation out of Texas, they started bringing tours of people to Rio Rancho from New York City, from New Jersey, from Chicago, from all these areas that were already then so populated, and it was so urban, that urban, rat race. And New Mexico represented open space, big sky, and wonderful weather. You don't get if we do have a storm pass through, it's gone in a day or two. We never have, snowbanks sitting around for weeks or months at a time. And then came Intel. So you had, the retired people who came perhaps to work in the construction business, because a lot of homes were being built. They, the first things they developed was the golf course and the country club in the middle of Rio Rancho. And that's where they brought these groups of people in and entertained them, to then entice them to buy land or buy one of their home styles that they were presenting.
Well, I will say Rio Rancho is more spread out. If you're looking for space, a big yard, you can walk around. Whereas, Albuquerque, if you're looking for more of a, I wouldn't say, I know I'm kind of going out on a limb. It's not really, it is urban, but not really how most people think of urban.
It's not high density urban,
yeah,
the way you would know from other places.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's just two kind of, it's actually two flavors of the same
Yeah,
same area.
so I would say Albuquerque is where the action is, the local action. If you're going to, if you like the arts, if you like to eat, if you like, shows and venues and, all the great concerts, they come here too. And we have beautiful venues, both indoor and outdoor. And there's a lot to do in the city. Of course, there's the different kinds of municipalities, and there's downtown, and there's the banking, and there's the malls and those kinds of things, and which of course employ a lot of people. So either you live close by to where you work, or perhaps you commute down the hill from Rio Rancho to anywhere in Albuquerque, even if you're down at Netflix, which is south of the airport, shouldn't be more than 35-40 minute
Yeah,
drive.
traffic's really not an issue here. The
Hmm.
biggest since I moved back from New York, uh, I was actually up in Harris the other day, which is a kind of a to the east of Albuquerque, which is a mountain community.
I
Uh,
live in Terrace.
yeah, I was actually up there doing some video work for Nancy, and I drove back and got in a traffic jam. Well, a traffic jam here is you have to go 50 miles an hour on the freeway. That's the worst I've seen the traffic since I've come
Slow
back. Yeah.
down.
So, and the speed limit through town is 65. So,
Can you speak to the technology that Rio Rancho also invests in? So for those who want to telecommute, who are looking for high-speed internet, things like that, talk about how Rio Rancho is trying to stay ahead of that curve.
yeah, Rio Rancho's especially working. They're working hard on the infrastructure, especially now with the COVID, because so many people are telecommuting. My internet just got an upgrade, and it seems faster. Um, they do have a really good internet infrastructure here because they are appealing to the tech companies, to the people moving here that want to telecommute. And my wife actually works online, and she's not having any problems at all. In fact, she's working now, and we're doing this conference, and we're not having a problem. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's very reasonably priced too. It's not it is high speed. I've done really, and I live way out I live out on a kind of a dirt road, so I don't feel like that when when I'm sitting in my office. It's very high tech. I've had very little problems, and most of the problems are the growing pains that they're upgrading. So I kind of sit back and do that, and I think Intel has a lot to do with that. A lot of their people are stuck at home right now too, like everybody else, and so they're they're keeping ahead of the curve on it as far as that goes.
good.